Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
I love hearing stories like this. Nick, tell me what your rentals have done for you.
Yeah, quite frankly, my rentals have done everything for me. The rentals have kind of given me this freedom to be able to pursue my passions. I've been able to leave my 9-to-5 job. I started a business that I love, and I get to be my own boss, and I only work on things that I like and enthusiastic about.
To do all of this, did you have to buy a ton of rentals? I mean, do you have a huge rental portfolio?
No, by most, compared to a lot of other people, my portfolio is pretty small, honestly. Yeah.
And what are we talking cash flow wise? About how much profit do your rentals generate every month?
Yeah. So after everything, expenses and utilities and the PITI, I'm looking at about $5,000 a month.
You don't need hundreds of rental properties or millions of dollars in rental income to live a really good life. Nick's got all of his basic living expenses covered because of his rentals, and that's freed him up to pursue in life what he wants to do. And on the show today, we're going to figure out how he did it. We'll talk about how he built his portfolio, how he financed it, and we'll take a look at all of his numbers. Joining us on the show today from Northern Utah is Nick McMurtrey. We'll take a really quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Nick. It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property. And when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. For a limited time, mention Rental Income Podcast and get a $250 credit at closing.
Rental Income Podcast.
Nick, what got you first interested in buying rental properties?
Growing up, my parents rented a townhome for about 12 years. And in that 12-year span, they definitely paid that mortgage off twice. I mean, the rent was not cheap. And financially, it wasn't a smart decision to stay there for that long. So I kind of always had this idea of, well, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to live in poverty. And growing up, that's kind of where we were at. So again, kind of just learning from the mistakes of others and saying, okay, I know what I don't want my life to look like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting that you took it as far as you did. You know, I think some people may have just walked away from that and thought, I'm going to buy a house, I'm not going to rent, but you ended up buying a whole bunch of properties.
Yeah, for sure. And I started out that way. You know, I said, well, easy enough. All I have to do is buy a place. And so that's where I started because I needed a place to live no matter what. So I was going to either be paying rent or buy a place. Those are the only two options that I know of, unless you know of any
that's
places.
That is it. So let's talk about your portfolio, because I think this is interesting, and I think you're making a pretty good profit here without a huge portfolio. So you're making $5,000 a month profit. Tell me about your portfolio. What does your portfolio look like?
Yeah, so it's all multifamily. There's one townhome and then one single family home in the portfolio, but everything else is small multifamily. So duplex, triplex, fourplex.
Okay. And how many units do you have?
16 doors.
16 doors. Okay. And how many buildings is that spread across?
That's across 7. Yeah.
7. Okay. All right. So you've made 7 purchases and now you're making $5,000 a month. So let's talk about this. So the first property you bought, it sounds like it was a house hack.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So my father co-signed with me, which was amazing. And so I lived in the unfinished basement of a townhome here in Utah. And then I rented out the upstairs room on the second story. On the second story, there's three rooms. So I rented out all 3 of those rooms and I lived in the unfinished basement and I was making $300 a month doing that and living there.
Wow. So did that feel like a huge sacrifice, like to live in an unfinished basement?
Not really, because I knew the why of what I was doing. I knew that I was building equity. I knew that the way I saw it, it was like I was getting paid $300 a month to live in an unfinished basement.
Right. Are you still living there today?
I'm not. No, I moved
Okay.
out about a year ago.
And where are you living today? Like, what's your housing situation today?
Yeah, so I live in a duplex that I own that's right across the street from a big university here, and I live with 4 other roommates.
Okay.
So, but I upgraded from an unfinished basement to a finished room. So
that's a big step.
Yeah, big.
All right, so you've got a room, and so today are you still able to live free in your current house, Zach?
Yeah. So I cash flow about $100 a month.
Okay.
This one was a little more expensive, but the location was better, and I liked it a lot. So
with house hacking and with bringing your housing expenses down, has that really enabled you to put more money towards investing?
Oh yeah. I'm able to save and invest about 90% of my income.
Wow.
Because of that.
Wow. Incredible. Yeah. Okay. So when you were getting started, did you have any mentors that guided you, or, because you grew up in poverty, it doesn't sound like you were really exposed to real estate investing. Did anyone show you how to do this, or how did you figure this out?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm a proud owner of a public city library card. So I read every book I could get my hands on. And secondly, I bought my first townhome and I lived there, and I was making money and living there. And I was pretty like, this is awesome. I was pretty intrigued. So I went on this, I went on this software called Remine, and you can filter out the property owners. And so I looked at people who had non-owner occupied properties or rentals, or second homes, I guess. But I found the rentals somehow. And then I filtered it by having had owned it for 10 plus years. I printed out those sheets, and on there, on the Utah state tax records, it shows their mailing address, which 90% of the time is also where these guys live. So instead of sending out mailers, instead of cold calling, I would drive over to these guys' house, knock on their door, and I'd say, hey, I'm looking for this person. That person was half the time the one I was talking to, or they could tell me how to reach that person. And I said, I really love your property at this address. I love the way it's kept. It's really well maintained. You wouldn't even believe it's a rental. It looks so great. It looks like you live there. I'm new, I'm young, and I'm trying to get into the real estate game more and trying to learn how to become a good landlord. I was wondering if I could pick your brain, or if you could kind of share some things you've learned.
Wow. And were most people receptive to you?
Yeah, I never had anyone slam a door in my face.
Wow.
I got invited inside, and because I wasn't trying to sell them anything, and I wasn't trying to buy their place. I wasn't trying to lowball them.
Just pick their brain. Yeah.
Yeah, just trying to learn.
And so did they give you any really good advice? Was there anything that you walked away with, or was that just seeing that these people that were regular people were buying rental properties? Like just seeing that, is that what motivated you to think I can do this again?
Yeah, I think both for sure. Honestly, I don't know if I've ever had an original thought in my life. Pretty much my whole philosophy and the way I run all my rentals and everything, I've just taken bits and pieces from all these different landlords.
Yeah.
And then it is just kind of great to be able to see, like, hey, I'm seeing a person physically in the flesh, and he owns 20 doors and he lives in one side of a duplex, and
Right. That's awesome. I love it. Okay. So then you talk to them, you got the motivation that you can do this again. And then at the same time, you're saving money because you're living for free. How much money did you need to buy your next property?
Yeah. So I was looking on the MLS every day for deals, and it was just really hard to find anything that would make sense. And I was still pretty new on my credit report and everything, so I wasn't the most lendable person in the world. Mm-hmm. But I found a triplex and a duplex here in Utah, and they were willing to sell our finance. So then I had to go talk to some more landlord buddies and, and say, or call them up and say, what does seller finance mean? How does that work? And I found out that it's a really awesome tool. They're the bank.
Right.
And so these guys were moving out of state, and they're older, and they didn't want to realize all the capital gains off the bat. So I was able to buy a triplex and a duplex for $30,000 down.
Wow. Okay. And then they financed the rest of it. So, all right. Yeah. So how much was your payment to them?
On that triplex?
Yeah. So it's a triplex and a duplex, right? So you have 5 units total?
Yeah. And they're right next to each other. But yeah, my PITI is $2,395.
$2,395. And then how much was and it sounds like they were rented when you bought it?
Yeah, so they were rented, but I realized while I was looking at it, because it was really hard to find any good deals. So anything that's worth grabbing or that you're not going to have to put any work or add any value to, it was way out of my price range. Mm-hmm. But these, I noticed that the rents were extremely below market value. And so those 5 units were renting for about $2,600 a month when I bought it.
Okay. And then did you raise the rents on those tenants, or what did you do to make it more profitable?
Yeah, so I purchased it, and then I didn't do any major repairs. I did some paint and some carpet, cleaned some stuff, and I was able to raise the rents from $2,600 to $4,600.
Wow, that's huge! An extra $2,000 a month with the same tenants. Like, did you raise the rent on the people that were living there, or as those properties turned over, did you raise the rent on the new people?
Yeah, so when I was buying it, I actually asked them if they could kind of tell the new tenants that a new owner was coming in and that the rents were going to be increased. And so 4 out of the 5 people there, they left before I even purchased it. Okay. So I got there and I had 4 units vacant already. So that was kind of nice because then I just worked on it and then I just posted them.
Yeah, I mean that's almost better to start with a clean slate. You can get people in that you like and kind of move forward from there. So you got the rent up to $4,600. Your mortgage payment is $2,395. Now, what about expenses? Like you're obviously going to have some repairs. You may have like water or sewer. Like what are your expenses on the property?
Yeah, sure. So my maintenance and repairs, the 12-month average is about $200 a month.
Okay.
I had to replace a water heater a few months back, so that kind of threw a wrench in that. It was like $150, but now it's about $200 a month if you average it out.
Okay.
And then I cover the water, sewer, and trash, and that's about $150 a month. Okay,
so about $350 a month on average for everything with your fixed water and sewer, and then your repairs coming in about $200. So about $350 a month is what you're spending. So that sounds like $1,855 would be your profit on that. That is incredible. Where that's a property that if you were to analyze this when you're buying it, it really wasn't making too much money. I mean, if you kept the rents at $2,600, you'd be making a small profit, but because you got the rents up to $4,600, now you've got a really good profit on that property. That is really awesome.
Yeah, and to cash flow $1,850 and only put $30,000 down, if I could find another deal like this, I would do it every single day of the week.
Sure. Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
But another thing to add is I think when I analyze a deal, especially in Utah here, because our market is pretty saturated and it's pretty competitive, but I look at a property, I try to look for the redheaded stepchild properties. So I try to look at a property and say, how is this underutilized? How can I add value? How can I increase revenue? Are the rents where they need to be? What could I do? What's the ROI if I do this repair? Could I raise the rents at all? And those are kind of the only properties that I can really afford.
Right,
the ones that are pristine and have the granite countertops in already, I can't afford them anyways.
Right. How do you keep track of expenses? Like, is there anything special you're doing to keep track of everything?
Yeah, I'm just an Excel nerd. Well, I actually use Google Sheets because it's free. Okay. So I just track every everything on Google Sheets.
Okay.
Yes, and I actually have separate bank accounts. So each property has its own proper bank account. So the tenants pay their rent and that goes into that property's bank account. And my goal is to keep a 6-month reserve fund for each property. I learned from one of the landlords I talked to by knocking doors that you should always have enough in your savings to replace the roof. So that's my goal. And I found that, about 6 months of expenses is about enough to replace the roof. Mm-hmm. And then after I hit that 6-month mark, then the cash flow, I take 50% as an owner draw, and then the other 50% goes into that reserve fund or that slush fund. But it makes my accounting really easy. My expenses are all tracked there, and then I kind of can cross track it with my separate bank accounts and my Google Sheets. And I wish I could take credit for that, but I had a financial advisor tell me that advice.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that's a real simple way to do it. Having separate bank accounts, and it doesn't sound like that's complicated to do. I mean, you just make sure that you're putting the rents in the right account, right?
Yeah, correct. And I have a local credit union here that does it, and I learned that most credit unions use the same software. So for anyone out there who has a local credit union, they're great to work with. They're local, so they want to help you out. And I have all my separate accounts, but they still all come up on one screen.
Okay. And how are you collecting rent? I guess I kind of assume there that people are giving you checks, but are your tenants paying online?
Yeah, most of them actually just Venmo me.
Okay.
So that's where my rent ledgers on Google Sheets come in handy. But Venmo's the most easiest. Everyone has it. I do have two people who still like to pay with cash, but they live close enough where I can collect that. And it's nice it's honestly kind of nice to get the cash collections because I want to be able to drive to the property, examine it, make sure everything's looking good, and kind of just check in.
Yeah. All right. So to review, your portfolio, you've got the house hack that you live, that first townhouse you bought. You've got the house hack you live in now, and the duplex and triplex we just talked about. Tell me about your other properties.
Yeah, so I acquired a triplex about 15 months after my first townhome house hack, and I got that on a conventional financing. It was called the Home Possible program. So you could buy a multifamily if you're going to own or occupy it with only 5% down. I bought that in 2021, early 2021, and a few months after they changed that. So now you can buy it, but you still have to have 15% down. So I bought that triplex and I moved into one of the units there, and I fixed it up, and then I moved back into my townhome. Yeah, and then I have another fourplex that's in my hometown in Wyoming, and that one I was able to sell or finance as well.
Okay, and so Wyoming, that sounds like it's kind of far away from where you're living. So do you have a property manager, or are you managing that from a distance?
Yeah. I tried to manage it from a distance, and within a few months, I was well aware that I was very in over my head. It's about 2.5 hours from me. So I drove down a few times to try to show that property and take people through, but it was a lot. So I was able to get a property manager on there. But that one is great because it's a different market, so I don't get the upside appreciation as much there, but my cash flow is a lot better.
So with that property, you have a little bit less control, being that you're not managing it. Do you mind not having that control, or do you like having a property manager?
Well, good and bad. It's really nice to not get any calls late at night or get any text messages blowing up my phone late at night. However, naturally, property managers just won't take care of something the same way I would take care of it. Mm-hmm. And they probably shouldn't because it's not their property. So for the ones I manage all here, I'm able to see exactly what needs done, how to fix it, and I can do it all promptly. Whereas property managers are managing multiple properties and many, many tenants. So it's not as big of a priority.
Right. Okay. So let's take a look at everything now. When you look at your entire portfolio, when you add up all your rents for all your rental properties, how much total rent do you bring in every month?
It's about 18,000.
Okay. And when we look at your expenses, if you just lump everything together, your mortgages, your repairs, property management, utility bills, like what are your total expenses every month?
Yeah, it's a little less than 13,000, but about 13,000.
Okay, so then that's how we're getting to $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
That is really incredible. I mean, it's not a huge portfolio, but it's making a huge impact on your life. So tell me what you've done. So you mentioned that you've been able to start a business. Like, what is your business that you started?
Yeah, so I in high school I worked at a shaved ice shack. And I always thought, man, this place is so busy. It'd be so awesome to own one of these one day. And I saw one come up for sale on Craigslist, and so I was able to buy it. And I mean, talk about a fun job. It's stressful sometimes, but that's pretty fun.
Nick is also a realtor in Northern Utah. If anybody is interested in learning more about investing in that area, or if you just want to reach out and say hi to Nick, I've got his contact information on the website. You can track him down at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 426. I wanted to give you a quick update on the podcast. I'm doing a lot better. My ankle is getting better. I'm feeling a lot stronger. I'm feeling better. And I want to get back to the regular release schedule on the podcast. I've started lining up some more guests and getting some more interviews recorded. So as I'm ramping things back up, I may miss a week or two here in August. I'm going to try to get out a show every week, but if I don't have something one week, you'll know why. But definitely by September, we're going to have an episode every single week. So thanks for all your support. I really appreciate everyone that's reached out, and I'm really excited to get back to the podcast again. I'd also like to thank our sponsors for making this episode possible. First, I'd like to thank Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. If you're looking to buy a rental property, whether you're just getting started or you want to add to your portfolio, reach out to Chaley Ridge. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of different loan programs. Of course, she's got the 30-year fixed. If you're looking to increase your cash flow, she's got interest-only options. She's got adjustable rate mortgages, and my favorite loan is her first position HELOC loan. So if you have a rental property with some equity, this is a great way to tap into that equity so that you can get the money to continue to build your portfolio. If you want to learn more or you want to set up a time to talk to Chaley personally, you can track her down at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE. lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. I'd also like to thank Rent Savvy for sponsoring today's episode. Rent Savvy is the first and only nationwide placement service for filling your rental property with a quality tenant for a one-time flat fee. You can register your rental property and learn more about their service at rentsavvy.co. That's rentsavvy, SAVVY.co. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. I'll be back with a new episode next Tuesday. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.